I always thought about harming myself.
I'm shy. I struggled with making friends.
I never thought I could do anything. I have extremely low self esteem.
Lately, I've been eating my pain away. Just throw it back up. I've been struggling to lose weight. Somebody said I don't fit in just because I wear my hair the way I like it.
1 out of 5 American girls suffer from mental health problems. Don't be that girl. Talk to someone.
Those thoughts I had are long gone, for I have a future I need to get to.
In order to get better, I had to do better. I learned how to make friends.
I believe in myself. That's when everyone else did, I set an example.
Instead of me eating everything, I started watching my calories. The weight is falling off.
I wanted to change my hair, but I decided it was for me. It's for me.
A PSA from the Curvy Girl Project.
And good morning, and welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we're going to have a very informative as well as a fun half an hour with a young lady that probably is getting to be very familiar to the WHPR TV 33 viewing audience. And I will give her information shortly. But before we start, our call-in numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, or 313-868-4336. And our website is www.tv33whpr.com. And you are watching us live from the phenomenal cities of Detroit, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan, as well as the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Glenda McDonald. Today, we're going to have a very fun-filled half an hour. And before we get started, just wanted to say that there are a lot of people that one of the things that people have to realize too, music is something that gets us all in a either good mood or it brings us out of moods that might not be so good. Music can bring us to times that were very pleasant, and they can also remind us of things that may have been a little bit melancholy. A lot of people reminded when you talk about music of people and places, things that they did, things that they'd like to do. But when we get started today and we start mentioning some of the names of some of the icons that you know and love, some of the icons have gone on to glory, but some of the icons that we're going to talk about today are also still here and are looking for your support when they come here to the Detroit area in concert. So my co-host today is a young lady who, like I said before, she is very familiar to the WHPR TV 33 viewing audience, and her name is Miss Letitia Sharp. Miss Sharp, welcome to the show
Hello,
today.
Darwin. I am so excited about the show today. We're going to have a good time talking about artists and the wonderful work that they've contributed to all of our lives in one way or another. So I'm excited about the conversation.
Good.
Let's get started.
Okay. We look at one of the artists that we're going to talk about first. He's a living legend. He's someone that so many people have owed their careers to because he wrote a lot of music for the Motown family. Mm-hmm. And he had particular artists that he wanted to write songs for. And he wrote songs that multiple artists, including himself, also recorded as well. And, I'll give a little hint in terms of say about who this artist is. And when we think about the miracles that a lot of performers have engaged in and kept their careers going, we can't think of none other than one of the kings of Motown, and that was Mr. Smokey Robinson.
Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
And his real name was William Smokey Robinson. Smokey was that nickname that he had that everybody knows him as Smokey. And people don't really realize, too, that he was a person that when he was with the Gordy family, that he was one of the prolific songwriters in a lot of the songs that were big-time hits for the Motown sound. And one of the things that Letitia and I were talking about was that, what are your favorite Miracles songs? Or what were your favorite Smokey Robinson songs? And when I have to think in terms of, say, about my favorite when it came down to Smokey Robinson, I'd have to go back into my history and look at Tears of a Clown. And I know Miss Sharp did not want me to sing, but I thought about it and I said, okay, some of you probably have to Google, but the tears of a clown when there's no, okay, let me stop because I can start singing some more of it. But that was my favorite. Tears of a Clown came out in 1967. Letitia, what was your favorite?
Oh, it would have to be Cruisin'. Cruisin' by Smokey Robinson, and it came out in 1979. But I also want to add just a little bit to just some of the history of Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. They were formed in 1955 is when the group came together. But he just recently performed here in Motown just this year. And so his music has not gotten old. People are still enjoying the music, the legacy. And it's my understanding, I did not make it to the concert, but it's my understanding he had 2 standing ovations. So Smokey, keep doing your thing. Legends never stop. You never stop wanting to hear good music.
And and his music has transcended for decades. You said 1955?
1955, the group was formed by him and 5 of his friends, total 5, right here in Detroit. So we got so many to get to, but Mr. Robinson, keep doing your thing. We're enjoying your music.
And the original name for the Miracles was the Chimes?
That's what I believe, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And 3 of the founding members, Smokey Robinson, Warren, Pete Moore, and Ronnie White had been singing together since they each were around the age of 11.
11 years old. Can you imagine that? That's beautiful.
Wow. But that's a long time to be singing and making those great hits that they did.
Music never dies.
And it never dies with us. It lives on in our hearts. It does not. Forever and ever.
It does not.
And one other group that I was thinking about, I know a lot of you may not think about Anita Baker with a group, was she used to sing with the group. She did one album with the group called Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. Mm-hmm.
And Chapter 8 was a group that was Detroit. It was a funk band.
Right.
And it was formed in 1979. Mm-hmm. And it was Mr. Michael Powell, Derek Washington, David Washington, Gerald Lyles, Derek Dirksen, and I think there was a couple other members that were in that group. But Anita Baker was asked to sing lead vocals for their album.
And she do that?
She did
her thing on the album. Right. She did.
Before she went and started some of the songs that are living on in my mind.
Right.
One of my favorites when it comes down to Anita Baker after she went solo was the song Fairy Tales.
Right.
And when I think in terms of, say, Greg Fillinganes and how Greg Fillinganes did the solo on that album and on that song, I I get excited when I hear his solo that he did, just like other groups that we'll talk about as well, and some of the artists that performed in the bands, along with the singer, that had phenomenal solos that you remember, and you kind of like, wow, I can't wait to hear so and so when they put their little keyboard solo or their drum solo and that kind of thing in there.
Exactly. One of my favorites with Anita Baker, I would say, is "No One in the World."
Oh, that's a beautiful song.
That's a beautiful song. So Miss Anita is doing her thing too.
And that was and that was a ballad that a lot of people sang, And the one thing that I like with some of the songs that like Smokey and Anita did, well, these were songs that a lot of people played at weddings.
Oh, exactly.
And when
they were true love songs.
Right.
There were songs that you can listen to and you felt something, So yeah, they were beautiful songs.
And
great ballad.
Just seeing people when they march down the aisle.
Exactly.
And those songs are played, right there. But when you also look at let's take for example here another one who's an icon, Jeffrey Osborne.
Oh, Mr. Jeffrey Osborne.
And when we think about LTD,
yes,
tell me in terms of just give a little background about LTD.
Well, now LTD is my understanding is LTD actually stands for love, togetherness, and devotion. Which I guess if I had to say the music over time probably hit on all three of those things because they were true artists that their ballads and their music just really spoke to those three things, I believe. And so we know that Mr. Osborne separated from the group. But again, good music always stays connected in some way or another. I do believe that he's actually going to be in concert this Friday. So he'll be in the Metro Detroit area, and he'll be here with Stephanie Mills. And so I am looking forward to him coming to town. I do have tickets, so I will be there. And one of my favorite songs for Jeffrey Osborne as a solo artist is "On the Wings of Love." Okay. And that came out in 1982, and that is a true love ballad, another wedding type song that you can sing. So, yeah.
And just to give a little history about them too, in addition to what you were saying, love, togetherness, and devotion, this group was formed in Greensboro, North Carolina, back in 1968 by keyboardist Jimmy J.D. Davis and saxophonist Abraham Onion Miller. And both of them were previously, they backed the great Sam and Dave. And upon relocating to New York City, the duo recruited artists or guitarists, Johnny McGee, horn player, Carl Vickers, saxophonist, Arthur Lorenzo Carnegie, and Toby Wynn, and also trombonist Jake Riley Jr., and then when vocalist and drummer Jeffrey Osborne, he also signed on before the group settled in in Los Angeles, where Jeffrey Osborne's brother, keyboardist Billy Osborne, joined the group, as well. But when I think about Jeffrey Osborne, I think about LTD.
Of course.
My favorite is "Back in Love Again."
Back in Love Again.
That was in 1977.
1977.
When they recorded that song.
Yes.
And when I think in terms of back in love, right back in love again.
And again, look at the two songs. They both talk about love, but they're two in totally different eras, during time. So it's great.
Well, those were love ballads.
They love ballads.
And they were ballads that people really could sing along to, and in some cases you had the men that would go and they would call up the ladies and they would go and start singing, and then they had some lyrics that were really iconic.
Exactly.
That you would think about, and it's like, wow, he's putting the words that I would like to say to somebody on paper,
exactly,
and to music.
Exactly.
And a lot of times those words, they stay and they ring home to a lot of, and then even with the women, that a lot of times when the men would start singing the songs, or they would go to the concert and hear the artist start performing,
right,
they would go, and it was like, wow, it's like On the Wings of Love, you know, and the woman would start thinking, he's singing that directly to me.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's what makes me tend to start smiling or start to chuckling like, wow, that's something rings home to me and what I'm going through.
Well, just remember, he's going to be here, right here in Metro Detroit on this Friday, and he'll be with Miss Stephanie Mills. So we're looking forward to seeing him and hearing some of those good love ballads.
And when I think about Stephanie Mills, the first song that comes to mind with me is Home, you know,
yeah.
from The Wizard of Oz.
Exactly.
And I'm like, wow, she
Now, for
sung
Stephanie
that.
Mills, mine is I've Learned to Respect the Power of Love. That's my song.
Power
Stephanie, yes.
Yeah, that was a beautiful one. That
That's
was.
my song.
Well, and then the other one that we just want to kind of segue into is the Supremes
Oh, Diana Ross.
and Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
a lot of people don't really realize that before they were the Supremes, they were the Primettes.
Primettes, right here in Metro Detroit. They
Right
were
here in the
founded
Detroit
right
area,
here.
correct. And a lot of people don't realize, too, that Diana Ross and some of the other members of the Supremes, they lived right there in the Midtown area near Davison and Dexter. You
Right,
know, a lot
right.
of people identified with the Davison, Dexter, Elmhurst, you know, in that area.
Exactly,
But
right.
they
Grew
had
up
a
right
home,
here in
and
town.
I know I had a book that had all the homes of prolific Motown stars
Mm-hmm.
and showed their homes. And some of those homes are still in existence. I think on Waverly, Buena Vista, you know, up there near Broad Street, Dexter, Homer, Petoskey, up in that area. So it's great that some of these, you know, stars, you can go by and see the homes that are still in existence. But when I think in terms of, say, a Diana Ross, there's a couple of songs that I think about. You know, one of the ones that was iconic for the group when it was her, Florence Ballard, and Mary Wilson was the song "Stop in the Name of Love." And like you just said earlier, love seems to be transcending through all these different songs that we're mentioning. And that song came out in 1965.
I want to add to, we cannot forget that this band were known to be the most successful American vocal band with 12 number one singles on the Billboard 100 Hot 100 list.
And then,
So
and
this
then
was
let's
at a
not-
time that, you know, that just wasn't the case for this, you know, for our music.
And then let's not forget, in terms of, say, when they would unite with the Temptations.
Oh,
And some of the classic songs that the Supremes and the Temptations did collectively, that was, and then when they would have the Temptations and the Supremes would perform, like with the Motown Reviews.
oh wow, like Motown 25. Well, my favorite song with Diana Ross as a solo artist, I would say is "I'm Coming Out." That song was an empowering song, like an empowerment song, I think. So a lot of people use it as, you know, this is just me. This is a new me.
Yeah, it's almost like it's an anthem.
It is. And Miss Ross is going to be at the Coliseum Windsor, I believe, on September in Canada on September 8th. So if you get a chance to go out and see her, that'd be a great concert.
Well, you know, and then when we think about Diana Ross, we think about a group that she founded, which was the Jackson 5. And I think that everybody, when you think about the Jackson 5, think about the gentleman that segued off from the Jackson 5, Mr. Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
And, you know, when I think about the Jackson 5, there were so many songs that they sang that I enjoyed. But one of the songs that it was a kind of a little bubblegum pop tune was a song that they did called ABC. You know, easy, simple. The lyrics were very, very catchy. And a lot of the kids used to sing that and learn their ABCs by
Exactly.
that song. And that song came out back in 1970.
Okay. And that was when the Jacksons were a group. So that was what? Jackie and Tito and Marlon and Michael, Jermaine, and Randy. And we know that they were, you know, the group was originally from Gary, Indiana, and they came together in about 1964. Michael, as a solo artist in his own, I'm a true Michael Jackson fan, so I like pretty much everything he makes. But one of my favorite, I would say, is "Remember the Time," and that was 1991, and that was in addition to the video that went along with that with that song. And I don't know if you remember this, but Iman, the model, was in that video, as well as Eddie Murphy and Magic Johnson. So
I remember Magic. I remember
that
him.
was a wonderful song and video. It was great.
Well, now then we got to get into one of the other iconic groups that still is performing. I believe there's one member that's still with us, and that's the Temptations.
Yes.
And, you know, my favorite when it comes to the Temptations was a song called I Wish It Would Rain. Lead vocals were by David Ruffin. Background vocals was by Eddie Kendricks, Melvin Franklin, Paul Williams, Otis Williams as well.
And I think my favorite Temptation song would be Treat Her Like a Lady. And all ladies love that song, I'm sure. And that was in 1984. And so that was a good year. And so they're still performing. Actually, they're performing now in concert with the Four Tops. So they're touring with the Four Tops. And they too will be in Metro Detroit October 5th, right at the Fox. So
now the song that you stated, the group had changed. Their members had changed.
The members had changed.
So it's like it was who? Ollie Woodson, Otis Williams still sang baritone,
Ron Tyson.
Richard Street was second tenor, and then Melvin Franklin sang bass.
Right. And actually, Otis Williams, who was one of the original members, he's still touring with the group now.
Okay, good. Okay. And then now when you look in terms of, say, it, another classic Motown group was the Four Tops. And the Four Tops, one of my favorite songs that I like was the song called Baby, I Need Your Lovin'. And that song came out in 1964.
Okay. No, I would have to go with When She Was My Girl.
Okay.
And that would be 1981.
And see, I think that when we're naming these songs, some of you are probably going back in your mental Rolodexes trying to remember,
Right.
okay, wait a minute. Yes, right. That is who sang that song.
Right.
And some of the members, in terms of, say, when you look at the Four Tops, that was a sound that came out in the 60s.
Right.
And it was founded as the Four Aims. With lead singer was Levi Stubbs. And I know the Stubbs girls still perform, as we, having this show today. Abdul Duke Fakir, Ronaldo Obi Benson, and Lawrence Payton. And they've remained together singing all that classic music for like over 4 decades.
All right. So they're going to be out here at the Fox October 5th. So if you want to see them, this is a great time to go out.
And then next we would have, looking at another classic group, was a group called the Spinners.
The Spinners, yeah.
And one of my favorites that I enjoyed, I sang a song in college that the Spinners had, was a song called Love Don't Love Nobody. It takes a fool to learn that love don't love nobody. And that song came out in 1978.
Well, I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and I'm working my way back to you, babe. 1978.
And the thing that a lot of people don't really realize is that the Spinners were formed in Ferndale, Michigan.
Right here, right?
Back in 1964.
54.
And who were some of the members?
54. Billy Henderson, Henry
Fambro.
Yeah. Purvis Jackson, C.P. Spencer, and James Edwards formed right here in Ferndale, Michigan.
And the name of the group initially was called the Domingos.
I believe so.
And one of the things that, I have to give a shout out to Claudine Jackson, who does a show sometimes after mine called A Spoonful of Comfort. And she is the widow of the late.
Oh, wow. The
Purvis
late,
Jackson.
the great.
Right.
The Spinners.
And next, let's get into, let's say, the Commodores.
Lionel Richie.
I have to say my favorite when I think about the Commodores is a song that they put out back in 1977. And it was a song called Easy Like Sunday Morning.
Mine would be Say You, Say Me, 1986 by Lionel Richie.
And
artist.
people don't really realize, too, that it was like Mylon Williams was on keyboard, William King was a trumpet player, Walter Orange was on drums, Ronald LaPrade was bass, Thomas McClarty was on guitar, and Richie was on saxophone and keyboards.
Yes.
And then let's get into one other group, just real quick, the Dramatics.
Dramatics, Ron Banks.
Ron Banks.
Yes.
And that was Ron Banks, Larry Squirrel Demps, Willie Ford, William Howard, Elbert Williams, Lenny Mays, Barrington Bo Henderson, Michael Brock, Larry Reed. And my favorite when you talk about Ron Banks and the Dramatic, what you see is what you get. I said, what you...
Oh, my God.
That came out in 1971.
Okay, I'll come back at you with I Can't Get Over You in 1976.
Oh,
That would
good
be
song.
mine, yeah.
And then when we talk about the Spinners, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Whispers.
Whispers.
And the Whispers, when you think about the twins,
Hey, Scotty.
Scotty and Walter. Scotty's real name was Wallace,
Okay.
but they nicknamed him Scotty.
Scotty.
Along with Gordy Harmon, Marcus Hudson, and Nicholas Caldwell. And I have to say, I have to do a duel. My favorites.
Okay.
In the Raw in 1979, and the Beat Goes On
And the Beat
also
Goes
in
On.
1979.
Okay, I'm going to join you in 1979 with Keep On Loving Me. And I think we all like that favorite part. Hey, Scotty. Hey.
That was my, and I saw them in concert, a couple of years ago, and it's like when they would say that, and Scotty, and hey, what's that mean? And just
Yeah.
hearing him come out there in front. Other group, we might not have time to get through everybody we want
Right.
to talk about because we only got a couple minutes left.
Right, right.
But let's go to
Let's get
Gladys Knight and the Pips. Gladys Knight and the
Gladys
Pips.
Knight.
My favorite, Heard It Through the Grapevine, 1967, and on from the soundtrack of Claudine.
Right.
And that was in 1974.
Okay.
And people know in terms it was Gladys Knight, Bubba Knight, William Guest, Edward Patton, and also who sang along with them was Brenda Knight, Eleanor Guest, and Langston George.
I would join you, actually 1998, Midnight Train to Georgia would be my favorite Gladys Knight song.
And when we talk about Motown, we got to mention one more classic icon.
Gotta
and
mention
that
him.
is Mr. Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye.
And I have to say, Marvin's real name was Marvin Pentz Gay Jr.
Yes.
And Gay was spelled Gay, and they later put the E at the end of Gay. Back in Marvin Gaye, we so miss him. He was born April 2nd, 1939, and he made his transition April 1st, 1989.
1984.
I'm sorry, 84. I'm sorry. And my favorite, 1968, was the song that Gladys Knight also did with him. I Heard It Through the Grapevine.
And I would go with Sexual Healing in 1982 with Mr. Gaye. And without Mr. Gaye, when we talk about Marvin Gaye, we have to talk about an icon that was just here over the weekend. And that was Mr. Frankie Beverly and the Mays Band was just here over the weekend. And actually, the reason I'm connecting the two is because Marvin Gaye was, they actually opened up for him when they first got started in the music industry. They were introduced to him by his sister-in-law. And so he met the band. And at that time, they weren't called Mays. They were called the Butlers, and then they were called Raw Soul when Mr. Gaye met them, and then he just said, "No, we have to do something with that name." So the one actually, other than Frankie, the other only original member, Rome Lowry, actually named the band Mays.
Okay. And then now let's kind of wrap up because we got probably less than 30 seconds left. So now people went to see Frankie Beverly over this past weekend, and they also saw the group Mays.
Yes.
So now the thing is that my favorite, Joan Payne, 1980. Yours?
Golden Time of Day in 1978, and Before I Let You Go in 1981. And Before I Let You Go, the band, the Mays Band that originally sung with Mays, the only other original member is Rome Lowry.
Okay.
And he sings now in a band that's called TMF, The Music Forever. We have more to come on that. Stay tuned. We got more to tell you about that.
Well, you have been listening to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. If you'd like to get a copy of the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart at area 313-457-5944. And we hope that you enjoyed this, and we hope that you'll look forward to having us come back again and talk about more music with more icons.
The music forever. Bye.
Have a great day.
Here at the Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, we don't just focus on health, beauty, and self-esteem. We also offer an amazing summer program for young ladies ages 12 to 18. For more information, visit our website at fullandfabulous.org. See you soon.